video up of the last moments before the aircraft crashed. Now, this is important because at this juncture, the landing gear is still down. They hadn't gained enough altitude for that to be retracted. But I think what's important over here is we need to look at the configuration of the wings over here, the flap setting. Again, this picture doesn't tell us anything, but we are going to have to see what aviation experts and the regulator actually has to say. Were the flaps in the correct position, the takeoff position? Because if it wasn't, then the aircraft wouldn't climb. Certainly not on a hot day like this and in a fully loaded configuration. This is moments before the pilot's quite clearly pitching the nose up. It's very often a reflex situation at this stage. Why is the aircraft not climbing? Chances are shortly after giving out a mayday call, what they would already have done at that stage is to go to maximum power to engage takeoff thrust as it's known. But the aircraft impacted with its nose pitched up, but it was quite clearly losing altitude. It wasn't climbing at all at this stage. The Boeing 787-8 aircraft is among the most advanced in the world. This aircraft, 11.5 years of age. In terms of the timeline, it was at about 1:40 p.m. that the pilots had one distress call, a mayday. This was shortly after takeoff itself. There was no further communication. It wouldn't be. They didn't have time to react. They were fighting the controls at this juncture. The aircraft didn't have evidently enough thrust at that stage. For what reason, we do not know. It was losing altitude. It fell down and collapsed on top of a medical college hostel where there were undergraduate trainees who were there. This is that building that you can see. We do not know the number of people who have died inside this or who have been injured. Some reports suggested that there were 20 injuries, but that's very, very preliminary. At this juncture, so many hours later, as we see this wreckage from inside, and that's part of the undercarriage, the inside of that hostel. This is obviously the canteen over there. We do not know the number of people who've lost their lives in this crash. 240 people were on board, 242 people were on board that Air India Boeing 787-8 aircraft. More than 160 of them, at least, I believe. Let's just try and get that number up if we can, of the nationalities. Approximately 160 of them were Indian nationals. 53 of them were British nationals. We've seen the British Prime Minister respond. We've got the Prime Minister of India, Prime Minister Modi respond, and others as well. This was an Air India Ahmedabad to London flight, which went down shortly after takeoff, just beyond the perimeter, and it crashed off Ahmedabad's Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport. And it was on a flight to London Gatwick. That's one of the major airports in the greater London area. There's a lot of video that's coming in. That's the tail section of the aircraft itself. There is a digital flight data recorder which is located within the tail section of the aircraft itself, one among a couple at least of digital flight data recorders. Those are absolutely critical because they would have more than 1,000 plus parameters which investigators would be looking at to try and figure out why, what exactly took place. There is something called ACARS data as well. There is data which was being transmitted on a real-time basis by the pilots of the aircraft, by the aircraft itself, which investigators would also use if ACARS was properly configured for that. This video over here is of people with injuries being brought in, but this may not have been the pilots on the passengers on the aircraft. These could have been local residents in that area just next to the perimeter wall, who've been brought in with those initial injuries. Firefighters were working away. The blaze that you can see on the top right-hand side of the screen over here and on the extreme left-hand side, but just look at the extent of those flames. Now, 80 to 90 tons of aviation turbine fuel in a situation like this, the chances of people actually getting out of that, miracles are known to have taken place in civil aviation, but so many hours afterwards, there is no conversation on survivors at all. It is just such a horrific situation, and it is such a sad situation. The last Air India crash, I'm not talking about Air India Express, I'm talking about Air India, was in 1985. That was the Kanishka bombing. More than 300 people lost their lives. It was in the late 70s, either 78 or 79, I forget the exact year, when an Air India Boeing 747 went down off the coast of Mumbai. More than 200 people lost their lives. But since then, there have been incidents, fatal ones involving Air India Express. But Air India itself, which operates larger twin-aisle aircraft, they haven't had an incident in terms of a fatal crash. And I should also mention that the aircraft in question, the Boeing 787, it's been in service from 2009 onwards. This is 2025. This is the first fatal incident involving this aircraft. So it's very, very sad what has taken place. But those are the details so far, and we've so many reactions which have been coming in. We'll continue to track that, but it just strikes me that at this stage, so many hours after, it's about 4:50 now in the afternoon. We're heading towards the evening. It's been about 3 hours since this crash took place. No word on survivors, no word on fatalities, and it just doesn't look good, does it? It looks awful.